everybody, it's Julie. Thanks for joining me here for some Bible journaling. I'm here using the December devotional and faith art collection called Higher Ways. The devotion was written by Jesse Silva. What really struck me in the devotional was this line right here that says, we can trust the one who is totally in control and totally good. God is sovereign, but he is completely good, and those two things don't counteract each other. He can see beyond our vantage point, and his purpose is for our good. And I'm going to use this verse, which is Isaiah 64, 3 and 4. I love the verse 4 especially. From of old no one has heard or perceived by the ear. No eye has seen a God besides you who acts for those who wait for him. God is always acting on our behalf. And that is just such good news. Okay, so let's dig right into the project. I am going to use this stencil, the diamond stencil that came with the kit. I'm highlighting my verse with a gray mild liner. And I'm taking the stencil and I'm using the fine tip and I'm marking off some of the little diamonds. Now I'm going sideways, I'm going horizontally instead of vertically on these diamonds, because my first thought here is to use this pattern piece just in the margin. And with that orientation, they're going sideways instead of vertically. Okay, so I've taken some washi tape and I've placed them around one specific diamond, just any one, it doesn't matter, but I wanted to isolate one diamond so that I could sponge some of that ink in there. And again, I'm just doing some random places. And now I've come in with a white gel pen and I'm giving some of those just a little white outline. You cannot see it very well here on screen. It's just a very subtle effect. And then I'm coming in with a pen and adding a few more. Now, the ink color that I used was a Distress Oxide ink, and it was weathered wood. I'm going to take this piece that I printed on cardstock now and cut this out. I'm going to make a tab out of this, and I'm also going to make a tag. So I'm cutting some of this off. This time I'm going to make a double-sided tag. So I'm folding it, and then I'm going to place that in my tab punch where the very tip top is still exposed, and then it won't actually cut that part. I like to use a pencil eraser to help place my piece inside of there, just to kind of grab it. And now I'm going to cut a tag, cutting a rectangle, and then I trim off one edge, and I take that edge, flip it over to the other side, and then that gives me a perfectly symmetrical tag. So I've cut out my tab and my tag. And sometimes you'll hear me say those words interchangeably because I just get them mixed up all the time. So now on my tag, I'm going to stamp the words God is. And these words are included in the stamp set, in the kit. And this lettering is from Ashley Lewis, who used to be on our design team. She's Legacy of Love Creations, and I love her lettering. So the tag says God is. And in this passage, it just really reminded me that God is totally in control and totally good. Those two things are together. He is sovereign, absolutely and absolutely good. Now, my thought originally was to use this paper piece and make a tip in, or just use it in the margin. I'm going to do some masking here, or just isolation actually, of some of the images on this stamp that says God. You saw me take a marker and just color the OD. And now I'm going to clean that off with you have to really clean it well at this point. And I'm going to use my marker. This is an India ink, a Faber-Castell brush marker, which you can actually ink up your stamp with it. I do huff. So after I ink it, then I bring it up to my mouth and huff, just an open mouth breath. That heat, that warm air keeps the ink moist. And so I stamped first the OD from the word God, and then the letters G-O from the word God, and I made the word good. And now I'm going to find, I like these stickers. They came from the December 2020 kit. So they're a couple years old. Well, no, 1 year old. But the gray I really thought worked well with my color scheme that I'm going with here, this monochromatic page with various shades of gray. And here's where I switch gears. Instead of just using that paper piece in the margin, which is a great easy way to get a background on your page, but I decided with my sentiment and I made that tag that it just wasn't working. So I put those stickers there, and it says God is always good. That's what I'm focusing on here, that no matter what he is accomplishing, no matter what is going on, he is always good, and it's always for our good. Whatever actions, even though we can't see it, we're in the midst of it, but he is always taking care of us. Kind of like that pilot that Jessa talked about in the devotional. Okay, so I'm taking one of the traceable pieces. I did cut it out just so I could manipulate it a little bit better, and I put it behind my page. Bible pages are generally thin enough that you can see through them well, easily enough to trace. So I used my gray mild liner first to highlight it, to outline it, and then I'm coming in with a black pen, and that gives it a little bit of depth and dimension having that gray first. And now I'm outlining this, and I'm coming in and giving it a double line. It just gives it a little more depth to it so it's not so flat. And where I cut this out on the traceable sheet, I left it so it's kind of a reverse stencil, a reverse template. So I was able to isolate just that flower and stamp and ink it just on the inside. So now I'm coming in with a white gel pen. I colored in the flowers, and I'm going around the edges, just kind of just loosely outlining this. And again, this gives it more dimension and more depth. I really like how that flower turned out. I'm going to take my pen and outline some of those diamonds. And once I've done the double line, I have to do that every time. So now I'm just going to assemble my page here. Going to tape this down. You saw me cut out the word good because, again, the orientation didn't work going horizontally. Well, I guess this is horizontal, not vertically, just depending on which way you're looking at the Bible. There again, I used my Faber-Castell brush pen to ink up my date stamper, and I used one of the pieces, a little label from the Faithfield Digitals. I'm using my sponge, my brush, to first try to get some of that ink on the edge, and you couldn't see it well enough, so I just scraped the edge of the tag on the ink pad and got some color there. Now I'm going to go around the entire border of my page and put some gray shadowing, and this is just going to give a little bit of a border, a little bit of an outline on my page. And then I'm going to come in also with a pen and do a couple of lines to frame it, the whole page. Thought that I wanted to darken my verse a little bit more. And now let's see, what am I going to do here? I'm looking for my fiber. This is some old fiber from my stash. I'm telling you, it's probably 18, 19 years old, something like that. But I still have a lot of these fibers, and I really like this gray. I thought it worked well. It's kind of fuzzy and chenille-like. Not chenille, just fuzzy. So I made a tag and used my tiny attacher to attach that, the fiber, the kind of ribbon. And now I'm going to outline my letters and the title that says good. And I'm going to do my own lettering on the tab, and I'm trying to mimic the word good. So I'm just closely looking at the style that Ashley did her lettering, and I try to do a similar effect. Okay, so here's where I'm gonna glue my tab, and you can see how it's double-sided. That way, when you see the back of it, it's not just blank. And now I'm using a straight edge. This is just my Bible mat, and I'm making a straight line across the top, the side, and the bottom, and then I come in and loosely draw a line so it's kind of squiggly and wiggly along the top of that, and it gives it that border. I'm going to take the little star, it's kind of like an asterisk. It's a stamp from the stamp set, and I'm going to just stamp a little bit around the page. I'm going to stamp it also on my tag. Just get a few of these here and there. One up on my tab. I'm getting my some more stars on that tag. And I'm taking a little bit of that ink and putting it on my acrylic block and picking it up with a wet paintbrush so I can splatter some of that gray around. Just gives it a little bit of a nice detail, a nice finished look. And I'm struggling with my diamonds over there. I think they're too dark, too prominent. So I use just a tiny bit of white acrylic paint and a baby wipe, and I just rub some white acrylic paint over those diamonds, and it's just enough to tone it down a tad. And this little heart I've cut out from the Faithfield Digitals. I'm going to outline those. Just add a little more of that border. I'm going to add a star from some of the add-on enamels and add one more stamped little star. I'm going to outline that star up top, and finally I'm going to do my journaling, which says, "You are always working your purpose for our good." So our good and his purpose go hand in hand. His purpose is never without our good in mind, and our good is always within his purpose. So here's some close-up shots of my finished page. I hope you enjoyed hanging out with me today. If you have any comments or questions, leave them in the comment section. I will link and list all of the products that I used in the description box. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. And make sure to stay tuned the rest of the month to see all the videos using this Faith Art collection. Take care. God bless. Bye-bye.